Meanwhile, China's special envoy to the Middle East says that Beijing and Russia, quote, have the same position on the Palestinian question. And China is ready to maintain communication and coordination with Russia to promote de-escalation of the situation and help establish a two-state solution. China has opposed attacks on civilians, calling for a ceasefire, but has not condemned Hamas's initial attack on Israel. Joining me right now is the Gatestone Institute senior fellow and author of The Coming Collapse of China, as well as China is Going to War, Gordon Chang, back with us this morning. Gordon, thanks very much for joining me. Your thoughts on China's complicity behind all of this?
We know that Hamas and other Iran proxies have Chinese weapons. They also have North Korean weapons, and those weapons could not have gotten to the battlefield without China's approval. Also, we have had diplomatic support for Hamas and, of course, the malicious condemnations of Israel by China. China and Russia are working closely together. This is China trying to create chaos in the global situation. And that's because Xi Jinping, who reveres Mao Zedong, has adopted Mao's chaos theory, which is that chaos will help China achieve worldwide rule, not domination, but rule.
Wow, this is all so disturbing, Gordon. And of course, this is something that we've been following and understood very clearly many, many years ago. Now, the Pentagon's annual report on China's military power finds that Beijing adopted more dangerous tactics in the Indo-Pacific last year. The report finds that China is also focused on dominating in AI for warfare and to probe enemy vulnerabilities, and that Beijing is rapidly increasing its nuclear arsenal as well. This as the Five Eyes intelligence leaders are warning that China's theft of intellectual property is significant and dangerous. Here's FBI Director Christopher Wray and what he said yesterday about this. Watch.
We have seen efforts by the Chinese government, directly or indirectly, trying to steal intellectual property, trade secrets, personal data, all across the country. We're talking everything from Fortune 100 companies all to smaller startups. We're talking about agriculture, biotech, healthcare, robotics, aviation, academic research. We probably have somewhere in the order of 2,000 active investigations that are just related to the Chinese government's effort to steal information.
Yeah, but Gordon, it's much bigger than just stealing information. This is the Five Eyes. These are the intelligence leaders from the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. They're collectively known as the Five Eyes, and they have explained the scale of China's theft is unprecedented. FBI Director Wray said that China is the defining threat of this generation, Gordon, something that you know very well, and we have also known very well for many years now. What are they doing about it?
Obviously not enough. We've known about this threat for about 3 decades. We're not protecting our networks, and we're also not imposing costs on China for the theft of U.S. intellectual property. You know, President Trump in his 2018 tariffs, those were a remedy for the theft of U.S. IP, and that was a good start, but we need to go much further. And China will continue to steal until we impose costs that are greater than the benefits China receives. So, Maria, this is on our presidents, and the American people really should be asking our presidents, well, what are you doing about it? Because they're not.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, Christopher Wray keeps saying this, but I still don't see any efforts to do anything about it. Here's a quote. "It is a threat to our way of life in a number of ways," Christopher Wray said. "The first is that when people talk about stealing innovation or intellectual property, that's not just a Wall Street problem. It's a Main Street problem. It means American jobs, American families, American livelihoods, and the same for every one of our 5 countries, directly impacted by this theft. It's not an abstract concept. It's flesh and blood, kitchen table consequences." No wonder they sent a surveillance balloon across America, and this president allowed it to travel across America for a week above our military installations.
Yes, and not just military installations. Those traveled over nuclear weapon sites, the 3 Air Force bases where we have all of our Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles, over Whiteman Air Force Base, where we have our B-2 strategic bombers, and over Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, the home of U.S. Strategic Command, which controls all U.S. nuclear weapons. Also, there was a Chinese laser shower in January of this year, and that was probably meant to find atmospheric data for China's hypersonic glide vehicles to attack Pearl Harbor and Hickam. The Biden administration, it says, oh, look, they didn't turn their sensors on. But we got to remember that they saw our reactions to this balloon, and the Biden administration response was totally inadequate for this.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom's trying to look like he's coming to the rescue, I guess. He's kicking off a week-long trip to China today for climate change talks, okay? He's reportedly expected to sign 5 memorandums of understanding with Chinese officials, Gordon. And he also wants to visit a Tesla plant. What exactly is Gavin Newsom? He went to Israel on Friday, by the way. What is he doing in Israel, and why is he going to talk about climate change with China? Is China not the largest abuser of this anyway? They're the biggest polluter in the world. What's Gavin Newsom going to do about it?
Yeah, they emit more carbon than anything else, and Gavin Newsom is going to do absolutely nothing that will be effective. China can sign agreements on climate change, but it doesn't adhere to them. As a matter of fact, it's increasing the production of coal-fired plants. So really what we're talking about is a situation which is going in the wrong direction. And by the way, every solar panel from China is made with forced or slave labor of Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other Turkic minorities. That's according to Jewish World Watch, a Los Angeles-based NGO. So we should not be importing any solar panels from China, which the Biden administration has actually helped to try to do, to bring those into the U.S. That is certainly hideous.
Well, you know what? It's just unbelievable to me. And by the way, it pains me to say this. I really do not like having to say this and admit this, but America is in decline. Let's call out the elephant in the room. This country has plummeted under Joe Biden. Do you agree?
Oh, well, certainly. And we're seeing this across the board. And, the question is, why is the Biden administration pursuing policies that are obviously weakening our country? You had Corey Mills talk about the saboteurs at our southern border. Right now, those are linking up with, for instance, I believe, that Chinese lab that was discovered at Reedley, California, near Fresno, which had at least 20 pathogens and almost 1,000 mice that had been genetically engineered to spread disease. So we know what's coming. The Biden administration is opening us up to attacks on our own soil, and we Americans are going to be fighting here in America. China is trying to encircle the United States with all of this chaos around the world. This is Maoist tactics. We know what's coming, and yet we're not doing anything or very little to try to protect the American homeland.
I mean, at a minimum, he should be securing the border, Gordon, in a real way, and stop lying to us that the border is secure. Stop lying to us that they need money for the border when we know the border doesn't need any more money to create more housing for illegal migrants. The border needs a policy change.
The border needs a wall, and the border needs the Border Patrol to be beefed up and to stop every person who is coming into the United States illegally. We also need to expel a lot of the people who have come into the United States. And I know that's a tough message, but we can suspect that a lot of them, the terror watch list, have actually slipped through. Some have been caught at the border, but obviously some have slipped through. And this whole issue of very suspicious Chinese males coming across into our country. And so really what we're talking about are a large number of people who will attack the United States when China and Iran give the order, because China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia form an axis.
Look at what we're seeing from Griff Jenkins. Griff Jenkins was at the border last week, and he reported that just since the beginning of the new fiscal year, Gordon, that's October 1st, okay? Between October 1st and October 14th, 2,000 Chinese migrants were apprehended at the southern border. 2,000. Gordon, that is an enormous number for a 2-week period. These are largely military-aged men. What do you think Xi Jinping is doing by allowing 2,000 Chinese migrants to enter the U.S. through the southern border?
Well, they are, you're talking about males traveling in packs of 5 to 15 of military age without family members, pretending not to speak English. And Border Patrol knows some of them are Chinese military. And so we have to be concerned because China has these facilities through the U.S. that these saboteurs will link up with. And the Biden administration just pretends that this is not happening. So we've got to be concerned.
How shameful of the legacy media for not reporting this. Look at this migrant encounters list. It is jam-packed with Middle Easterners coming from some of these hotspot areas like Syria, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, as well as 2,000 Chinese migrants. And yet this, I mean, Liz, you said it earlier, he should be impeached. Joe Biden as well as Alejandro Mayorkas. How do they get away with leaving this like this?
It's a good question.
Well, you know, you also...
sorry.
Yeah, well, hold on. Liz Peek, jump in here.
No, good morning, Gordon. Yeah, I think it's outrageous. And there is actually a law which basically says the border has to be protected. And I think Alejandro Mayorkas not only has lied to Congress, but he's in dereliction of duty vis-a-vis that law. I think there actually are grounds for impeachment, which, by the way, several congressmen have put forward such charges over the last couple of years. Hasn't gone anywhere. In my view, it should.
Absolutely. Gordon, final word from you.
Well, the Biden administration, as part of that $6 billion hostage deal on September 22nd, actually released Iranian operatives into the United States at the request of Iran. They didn't repatriate them to Iran. They released them into the United States.
Oh, my God. Unbelievable. This could not be any worse, I don't think. Gordon, thank you. Thank you so much for putting a spotlight on this. Gordon Chang, we appreciate you and your work.